If you know anything about being able to go to the next level in your life or your business or your relationship or really any part, it's mostly about identity, right? So it's what you identify with, what you believe, you attract and you create, right? So people are all hung up on habits, but if you identify with something, you don't have to think about the habit. You don't have to create a habit. Now, so this is a given. I've seen it play out all the time. If you believe that you're the type of person who is a 7-figure business owner, you start making decisions based upon that. You start seeing life in a different way. Now, the issue with this is very powerful. I've rarely seen somebody kind of skip to that next level without doing this. But here's the downside. Here's the issue. The issue is this, which is we divorce the past, we divorce our old identity before the new identity has been embodied, has been set. And when we do that, we create a lot of chaos in our lives. Right? We create a lot because our life is going a certain way, and then we create a new identity, or we embody, we're attempting to embody a new identity. And then that identity, let's say we actually wake up in the morning and we believe one thing, but our life is in the other way, okay? So there's this transitionary point, and this could be months, could be years, that it occurs. And if we don't kind of respect the identity and our reality while building the next one, we create massive, massive levels of chaos and instability in our life because we're essentially changing really quickly. Now, this is okay if you want that to be the case, but generally speaking, most people I meet don't really want to have these kind of like accelerated elements of chaos, right? Because it can mean making a lot less money. It can mean like your life is becoming a blank slate in order to be able to create this new reality. So, I'll give you an example from my life, right? And so over the past 2 years, I've gone from this desire of being, this like mentor and business, owner and so on, to more of the investor archetype, more of the building businesses and owning a portfolio and these different types of things. And arguably, I made that transition too quickly, right? And so, and again, it was still over the span of time, but my ego wanted the new identity, right? And so because my ego wanted the new identity, I stepped into that identity, and that meant that the old identity, which my ego no longer wanted, started to disappear more quickly than I wanted it in its reality. Okay, so that means, this new reality was getting created, but then there was the instability, there was the messiness of going from one identity to the other identity. The identity of being this advisor and investor that owns, dozens upon dozens of companies versus the person who advises people to scale to multiple 7 figures. Right? And so if I could give someone advice, if I could give myself advice or you advice, what I'd say is to ensure that your ego is not rushing that transition to that next level, because more often than not, the current identity is serving you, and it's more, changing it 1 or 2 degrees at a time versus I wake up today and I'm 90 degrees different, right? That whole notion of 1% a day. And so in my life, that created scenarios that, at the end of the day, it's really not the end of the world, not my world or anybody else's world. However, if I look in hindsight of the past 2 years, it was like my ego felt like I wanted this new identity, and it was chasing it instead of embodying it. It was trying to bring it up. I was trying to bring it up the mountain instead of just allowing the natural progression of it to happen, knowing that it was part of my destiny. It was part of who I'm meant to be. And so, this brings up this element where whenever we're trying to push something up the mountain, whenever we're trying to adapt a new identity, it's generally because we both feel like we're meant to do that, but then the ego kind of creeps in and it almost brings it like to this goal of like, oh my God, life's going to be, so much better when I'm like this or like that. And so this identity, your life becomes what you identify with and your perception, your perspective. But being conscious and present to those changes and ensuring that those changes are in their time instead of in what we want the time to be. And when we do that, when we slow that down, we generally end up ahead because, of course, we don't create chaos, and the more chaos we have, the slower we are in general. Right? We can have moments of feeling that momentum, but in general, it's going to be slower. And so, being conscious of those shifts of identity in whichever area of life, I'm particularly talking about business, makes it so that we're able to build better businesses, to build better brands, to build better everything, because when the new identity arrives, it's stable, it's grounded, and it's embodied versus, well, this is just what I feel is right. The feeling of I know this is right is true, but perhaps not in the timeline in which you think it is. If you don't know who I am and you're already to the end, I'm Scott Oldford. I've helped hundreds of businesses scale past 7 figures. An investor and advisor in dozens upon dozens of companies. And more than anything, I love helping entrepreneurs have the best life and the best reality available to them.